In Sicily, Lorenzo drove with his son to an isolated winery where they arrived after some men had already been killed. He grabbed a gun and instructed his son to stay in the car. Lorenzo was accompanied by one of the guards inside the building, where they saw more dead bodies brutally killed, and reached the basement where two of the guards had Robert at gunpoint. Lorenzo asks Robert about his purpose, to which he responded that he came to take back something that doesn't belong to him. Impressed that Robert was able to track him down, Lorenzo warns him that he will not be leaving the winery alive. Robert counters by challenging Lorenzo's safety within the next 9 seconds. Swiftly, Robert dispatches all the guards using one of their weapons. Lorenzo, on the ground, tries to crawl to escape. Robert grabs a shotgun and kills him, then takes a key from Lorenzo's belt. Exiting the building, Robert points his gun at Lorenzo's son, but spares him and continues to walk. However, the young man takes a shot. When Robert turns around to retaliate, the boy drops his weapon and flees. Robert soon realizes that he was shot. In the back, on his drive back, Robert eventually passes out and is found by one of the local police officers, Gio. Gio takes Robert to a local doctor, Enzo, and assists in patching Robert up. When he wakes up, he is unable to answer Enzo's question about whether it was a good man or a bad man they had saved. Nevertheless, Enzo carefully oversees Robert's recovery, and on the 3rd day, Robert can walk with a cane well enough to explore the town. Robert stopped by a local cafe where he ordered tea, but Amina served him coffee instead. Later, Gio arrived with his daughter, Gabby. Gio then handed over the keys to his car and left. At Enzo's place, Robert makes an anonymous call to the CIA's Financial Operations Group and speaks to Agent Collins. He reports the discovery of a strange winery in Sicily that is apparently importing wine from Syria. Robert spends the next few days getting to know the locals and various business owners in the marketplace. One day, he notices a gang extorting money from the store owners. As he passes by, he overhears Angelo getting beaten up by Marco. Robert watches as the gang leaves the store after warning Angelo about returning for the money. The next day, Robert visits Angelo's store to buy fish. Angelo refuses payment from Robert, stating that it was an honor for Enzo's friend to come to his shop. Meanwhile, a team of CIA agents, including Collins, discovers not just illegal narcotics, but also millions in cash at the winery in Sicily, given that these activities were not even on their radar. Emma and her colleague Frank decide to continue searching for any information they can find. Enzo inspected Robert's wounds, to which the latter asked why Enzo didn't report him to the police. But Enzo insisted that not knowing if Robert himself is a good man or not is a sign of a good person. Vincent, who had just finished praying, met his brother Marco outside. He instructed Marco to get ready for bigger plans in Altamont. Robert packed his things and was ready to leave. Carrying his bags as he went outside, he noticed that the people were in commotion. They were surprised to see that Angelo's shop was on fire, and Robert saw the gang watching from a distance. Later, he helped Angelo clean up the mess while Gio looked into the CCTV footage and officially called for the identification of the owner of the van. While having a regular tea day at Amina's cafe, he notices Emma taking a picture of him. Emma tried to interrogate him about the winery, but Robert gave vague answers. She instructed him to stay close and left while saying his name. As Gio went to fetch Gabby, he received a strange call that Gabby had left school earlier. Gio promptly asked the teacher and learned that an officer had picked Gabby up a while back. Gio rushed home to find his wife and daughter held captive by Marco and his men, as Joe's family watched. Marco sought revenge for Joe's inquiry into their van and delivered a threat before leaving. Robert noticed Joe's bandages as he left Enzo's office. Robert then asked Enzo, and Enzo explained that such incidents were common not only in their town but also in other places due to criminal organizations like the Camorra. Robert jogged his way to the church where he met Collins. Robert asked if she believed in miracles, to which she replied that she didn't. She told him that he was not a person of interest in the incident that happened in Sicily. She confirmed that the Sicilian farmer Lorenzo had been on Interpol's most wanted list for a decade. Collins asked Robert why he chose her to receive the anonymous tip, but he sidetracks the conversation by saying that what she should instead be focusing on why Sicily was being targeted for these smuggling activities. Promising to find the answer, Collins expresses her hope to learn the reason for choosing her in their next meeting. That evening, Marco interrupted Joe's family dinner and instructed him to go to Somalia to get a few boats. He then spotted Robert seated at a table across and went to warn him not to interrupt. Robert asked Marco to take his friends and go someplace else to conduct their business, but Marco chuckled. Robert warned Marco while applying pressure to the nerves in his hands, and Marco complied with his request. Before leaving, Robert instructed Marco to leave his firearm behind. Marco left while Robert continued his dinner. Marco, infuriated, started ranting about killing Robert. As he reached for his friend's gun, the van crashed into his friend. Robert appeared and fought off Marco. He quickly subdued him and left. Their bodies were discovered the next morning by the police. In Rome, Collins received a call from Frank about the latest station bombing, wherein the money used in the attack was the same money from the narcotics. She told Frank that she would take charge of gathering more information about the inner groups. Collins met with the chief of police of Naples to ask for his permission to interview several men, to which the latter granted except for one. Amidst this, Emma insisted on interviewing the man. Chief Barella then visited Vincent and informed him about the arrival of the CIA. He suggested that Vincent stop all his activities, as he believed Collins would soon find out about his business. However, Vincent refused to back down. Instead, Vincent instructed him to find Marco's killer. Chief Barella got pissed off at Vincent's stubbornness and reminded him that he is nothing compared to him, which angered the latter. He then cut off his hand, left him a threat, and had his men escort him to his car. Collins was informed about the attack on Chief Barella, and then Robert called to tell her that it's the Camorra involved, not terrorists, as Emma approached the men waiting to escort her. An explosion left everyone wounded. Collins was taken immediately to the hospital, where Frank assured her that he would take care of the rest of the work. Denson took Gio and his family hostage and announced to the town of Altamont to bring him the person responsible for his brother's death. He shot at Gio's ear and threatened to kill his family if he wouldn't reveal the killer. Vincent was interrupted by Robert's shouts instructing him to show himself. Robert slowly showed himself and told Vincent to spare the others and just take his revenge. But Vincent chose to kill him in front of the people to warn them about the Chimera. Just as Vincent was about to shoot Robert, Enzo retaliated, and everyone took out their phones to record everything. Vincent was warned that the police were coming, prompting him to leave the scene. Vincent planned to kill Robert the next day, but Robert sneaked into Vincent's place and killed his guards one by one. A drop of blood awakened Vincent and he discovered Simone's dead body. Armed with a gun, Vincent quietly navigated and found his men dead. Frightened, Vincent randomly shot everywhere until Robert knocked him down. Vincent woke up tied down as Robert warned him that he had 6 minutes before the drug stopped his heart, then removed his ties. Vincent tried to run away from Robert, but the latter continued to follow him until his last breath. At the hospital, Collins watched the news about the success of the operation against the Camorra. She was interrupted by Robert, whom she thanked for calling her that day, where she was able to avoid severe injury from the explosion, carrying a bag full of cash. Collins thought he had stolen it in Sicily, but Robert told him about Dyer, who lost his pension due to a cyber attack. Collins soon realized that Robert had followed the trail of the attack to the winery in Sicily, where Robert killed Lorenzo and his men, grabbed the keys to the vault, and took exactly as much cash as was owed to Dyer. Collins asked if Dyer was his friend, but Robert answered no, and left the cash. Collins went to Boston to hand the money to Dyer and his wife, who were relieved to know that they were not going to lose their house. The couple thanked Emma, but she credited and left the cash. The stranger who did it. Back at her office, Emma received a package containing her mother's diary and a note from Robert. It was then revealed that Emma was the daughter of Brian and Susan Plummer, who were Robert's CIA friends. On the other hand, in Altamont, Robert joins the locals as they celebrate their football team's victory.